What's up, everybody? Hello. Welcome to the Hustling Sideways podcast. I'm Alan Halas. I'm a music writer here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
And I am Jim Love, and I'm a keynote and motivational speaker, also here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
And this is the Hustling Sideways podcast. When we don't have amazing guests on the show like we do every other week, we are talking about the stuff that side hustlers go through, stuff that people with passion projects, businesses, all sorts of things go through.
All the trials, the tribulations, the good things, the bad, the ugly, all in between. There is nothing off limits, I would say, in one of these that we call the bonus episode.
I like that that's how we look at it. This is the unfiltered.
Yeah, this is uncensored. We are very vulgar in this. At some point I'll probably take my shirt off and wave it. It'll get kind of loud.
That's what we expect from these sorts of things. No, it's not like that at all.
Not at all. Yeah.
We were talking about the things that side hustlers all experience and the things that we can commiserate about as well.
That's right.
We're reaching the end of the year.
We are. It's like about to be.
Yeah.
It's just kind of I was actually thinking about this on the car ride here. So 2024 feels futuristic. Like it feels like a number that I shouldn't reach in terms of year. Like when you were a kid and you're like 2000, so wild. Like, did you think you'd be 24 years later?
No, and now I feel older by the second.
I knew you were going to say that.
Just thinking about it.
It's just bizarre. It just doesn't feel like an attainable year and number. Like it's too high.
Right.
And we need to press reset or something. It's kind of what I've come
If
to
we
the
could go
conclusion.
back to 1998,
we'd be good. I'd be second grade, just killing the game, and it'd be great.
From the business standpoint, though,
yes, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yes, I am interested in knowing when do you start thinking about the new year?
Yeah.
And what kind of all goes into that for you?
Yeah. So there's two parts of this. It's, I do a lot of my work is with students, of course, but I also do some corporate things, some things with parents, teachers, etc. Oftentimes, the majority of my folks are semester oriented, so when it's an off time, i.e. right now, is when I'm really getting into what am I looking at next semester? Like in August, where do I want to be? And thinking about age groups, so I know that freshman orientations start up, or I know that student council has summer things, or what's going to be happening in this time. So I really start thinking about my messaging, thinking about where I'm going to be at on social. I think about when I'm going to reshare my website link or highlight videos I have of when people are starting to think about when they want to bring in folks. But I mean, it's definitely a constant cycle. I mean, I could just give you yesterday. So right now, what is it? It's a Monday when we're recording this.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I was out at one of my favorite bars/restaurants in Sherwood, and I was watching football and having a drink and literally sitting there and writing out some of my thoughts going into 2024.
Scribbling down notes.
It was great. Yeah, and I haven't done that in a long time, and to have actual time set aside to do that, that's where I kind of really use my weekends, frankly.
Yeah.
Not all my weekends, but if I'm in the car for 3 hours as a passenger,
wait,
I'm gonna start
using the weekends drinking or taking down the notes?
Taking down the notes.
Okay,
I'm
very
glad
important.
You had to ask
very important
that.
to differentiate.
That's a very, very good differentiator. I mean, basketball season's here. Saturdays happen. Anyway, moral of the story is it's really critical to take whatever time that you need to we talk about kind of resetting, but actually writing down what you want to do is really important. So I've had something I've written down for a long time is I want to get on a plane and go do what I do somewhere.
Sure.
And I think 2024 may give me a couple chances to do that, which is awesome.
I like that.
But I'm trying to finagle my way of does the messaging have to shift? The
Yeah.
world changes, and something I wrote out in 2015 may or may not be applicable still.
You can't say it's snowy or if you're down south somewhere. I will give you that
yes,
tip.
that
Just a
one's
pro
true.
tip.
Yeah. Pro tip. Yeah, if you're in
Yeah.
Florida, it's probably not going to be snowing. But it's really important. So I do. So a lot of it's organic, where I'm just kind of thinking about where to focus my time, for next year. But I get really reflective, on Sundays especially, where I'm just let's write some stuff out, and that's where I start really planning and getting into it. And then after that, it's kind of what, I'm going to throw my name out there at a couple different places and see what happens.
Nice.
And it works itself out. So I'm not nearly as strategic in this sense, if I'm being totally honest. I kind of go where the wind takes me, but
Sure.
I'm thinking about where do I best fit and where's
Right.
my niche. And then that's where I start really focusing, or where are places I haven't touched as much and,
Okay.
and where I can put some value into.
Yeah, absolutely. In my sense of things, so when you create a music website and you create a content website or a news media platform, whatever, I always thought, oh yeah, just write about stuff, and then the advertisers will come to you.
They'll come flocking.
Yeah, they'll come to you, and what I didn't realize until years and years later is that obviously they have budgets and they are thinking on completely different things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they set those budgets really at the end of the year.
Yes.
So for me,
budget
I
time.
first start looking at 2024, I started looking in October already this year, and kind of mapping out like what are my events going to look like, what are what's the content pieces going to look like for me, what are the special things going to look like for special things that can get sold. That has to start in the last quarter of the year for me to prepare for next year.
Yeah. And how long does that process take? Does it take like a month? Does it take a week? Does it take, like...
It can be a little sporadic at the beginning, but I think eventually, once I get into like around November-ish is when I'm really starting to be like, okay, you got to catch people before it's the end of the, before we run into the holidays, before we run into people taking off for weeks at a time.
Everyone's just gone. December 20th, the people just cease to exist when it comes to emails.
Especially music too. Like the whole music industry seems to kind of shut down.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them are consumer based, or if they're like instrument makers or something like that. And they've already got their holiday sales out, and then they're probably not starting up again until after the first of the year, really. So I've had to learn that, and that's not something you think about when you're creating like a music website to talk about cool music that came out, is to think about when are people going to buy synthesizers or whatever, right? So I had to learn that one kind of the hard way. And I went out to a convention one year in 2020 in January and was starting to like pitch advertisers on things. And well, their budgets were already kind of set for the year. So now I have to kind of jump that ahead of time. And you create a sales deck and all of the stuff that you need for, again, things that you wouldn't think writing about music lean into.
It's such a good point. And I think it's critical to know who your audience is in that sense. Like if you're going after people who run in a fiscal year like that, you need to get yourself to them by October. That's when that's when these high level meetings are starting. Like, where do we put it? And for me, it's just like I have school years, run like that. And they're thinking about budgets, prior to the year being over and the semester being over, and I have to get on their radar soon. Or it's like a proactive reach out where they're like, what is your availability look? I always like when people are like, what does your availability look like in March? I'm like, well, I mean, you name it, like let's just, like, I was like, pick a couple dates. I'll tell you what doesn't work. So, but it's great. I really like to get on those people's radars quickly. And if we can get something in the books 3 months before it's going to happen, that's where I'm going to be. And then I like to start doubling up on those. So if I know I'm going to be in Chicago March 15th, March 16th, I might try and still be in Chicago. To do something else, and actually have that going on this year. I'll be like, Patty's Day weekend, I have like 2 keynotes in a row.
There we go.
I love doing that. I can double up. I can kind of do my thing, and then like I finish and I'm exhausted and I feel great, and then I go back home. So it's a lot of fun.
I'm the one that's booking shows like 3 or 4 months out with all like local artists that are available usually. And they kind of are like, what? Why? Yeah, of course I'm available in February.
Why would I not be free?
Yeah, exactly. So like, I have that kind of the opposite problem of like, oh yeah, everyone's too available.
Yeah, right.
You don't want it to like fall off of their radar.
Exactly.
So we want to know though, when do you start looking at your new year? And what are your plans for the new year? Tell us in the comments wherever you're checking this out.
We will start thinking about our one word for next year.
I haven't.
Upcoming show.
I've been too busy doing all the other stuff. I haven't even thought about this.
1,000 words he's thinking about right now, but we will start that. If you're new to this show, we try and pick one word we focus on each year, and it's going to be coming soon.
Yes, so absolutely. So in the meantime, if you are first checking out the show, and we have a lot of people that are just starting to check us out, so thank you for that.
Welcome.
You can find us wherever you get your podcasts. We are the Hustling Sideways Podcast. You can also find us on Facebook. You can find us on X, on Instagram, on YouTube. We are on LinkedIn now.
Oh yeah, we're really professional.
We're on TikTok. Honestly, we should have been on LinkedIn so many years ago.
That's okay.
But
now we're there. That's all that counts.
We're there. So share our content wherever. Tell a friend about us, because we got a big 2024 we're working on
we
too.
We got some sheesh going down.
Absolutely. And if you want to be a guest on this podcast, you can do that by sending us an email. It's hustlingsideways@gmail.com. And Jim,
keep on hustling.
We'll see you next week.